Hey everyone, this is Michael from Hummingbot, and we're coming at you with one more edition of Hummingbot Live, the weekly show where we run some Hummingbots, talk about all things crypto, and try to educate our user base. Sorry, 1 second. Really try to educate the user base about how to use Hummingbot and how algorithmic trading works, and really just try to generally answer questions about how our product works, as well as how we're seeing things happening in the broader crypto world. So today, right now, my Docker installation of Hummingbot is still in progress. I just downloaded the new version, which shipped with a lot of new features in the last release, including paper trading mode, improvements to the pure market making, the cross-exchange market making, and the discovery strategies. So today I'm going to really focus on paper trading because I think it's a really important feature, especially for new users, in getting them over the hump in terms of understanding where the risks are, how much they could potentially earn, and really being able to get familiar with our product without risking the real capital. But before that, I wanted to spend a little time talking about my trip to China. As you guys know, I was not here last week, and because I was in Shanghai for the Wangshan blockchain conference. And kind of going back to where when I first went to China for crypto about one to 2 years ago to now, there's really been a meaningful change in how people are approaching the sector. Had the privilege of being on a panel with a few other projects from China, for instance, DDEX, which is one of our partners, DeFi board, DForce Network, and these are all China-based blockchain projects. And what really stood out to me was how much the focus has changed from purely just investing in a sector to building technologies that further decentralization, increase privacy, increase scalability, and overall make the technology better. And this is kind of I think how projects in Silicon Valley and other parts of the world are approaching it, and it's really refreshing to see that that even projects in China are approaching it with the same level of technical rigor. And I think it's really important, especially in times like today. As you guys probably know, the prices in the cryptocurrency world have dropped about 20% in the last 2 days, which is pretty crazy, compared to traditional markets. But it's a reflection of the fact that prices are always volatile for new asset classes like crypto. But I think a lot of time price obscures the actual innovations and the growth that's happening from a technical standpoint. Like for us, we really actually very rarely look at price. Obviously, it's a huge influence from a market making perspective, but like we're really focused on trying to increase the power, the number of exchanges Hummingbot's connected to, the number of features it has, and the things that it can do for people. And I think a lot of other blockchain projects are approaching it with the same attitude. So obviously, price is important because price has impacts on security. Obviously, in the level of participation from people who are new in the industry. But I think that for me, I'm still very optimistic about the future of crypto because what I see is that you have all these entrepreneurs that are trying different things, and they're coming at it with they're coming at it because they want to invent new technologies and make the world a better place, not just because they want to do a pump and dump and get rich and get out. And so to me, I feel like because this technology is actually improving day by day. People are trying all these new things and creating these new ways for people to get control over their financial future with crypto. Then in the long run, things will happen, and things will do well. The analogy I always like to make is that if you look at the price of where Nasdaq was in 1999, it crashed after the 2000 dot-com bubble, and it didn't return to that same level until about 2015. So, if you just looked at price, you would have thought that the technology space had, basically done nothing from 99 to 2015. But as we all know, a lot of things happened in that intervening 16 years. You had Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and all these companies create amazing products. But that wasn't reflected in the price of technology stocks for a 15-year period. And of course, it's because there was a bubble in the late 90s, and the prices kind of like caught up to it after a long time. And I think the same trend will happen in crypto. Price is not a great reflection for what's happening under the surface. I think it's more important to look at what you can do with your crypto now that you couldn't 2 years ago, and whether it's lending, staking, using it for market making bots like Hummingbot. There are just a lot of things that you can do that you couldn't do before, so to me, that's always the real benchmark for progress. Okay, so I think my Docker is done now. So let's go ahead and talk about paper trading mode. So let me change over to my screen. Great. So first things first, before I kind of go into how it works under the hood, let's talk about how to set it up and how it actually works. So the first thing is if you go into Hummingbot right now, there's in the new 0.15 version, there is now you can see a new toggle called paper trade mode up on the upper left hand side. So if I type paper_trade, I can enable that. Okay. And now you can see it's on. So when paper trade mode is on, it will not use your actual balances on each exchange to trade. Instead, it will use a set of dummy balances that are specified in the global configuration file. So if you look at the docs for paper trading mode, you can see that by default, here are the balances. So we assume that you have 1,000 USDT, 1,000 of these other tokens, 10 Ether, 10 WETH, and 1,000 DAI. You can also edit this and add other tokens, other tokens, and or change these balances here as well. So as long as you follow this format, and this is located in the conf_global.yaml file in the configuration directory. So how does this work? So let's set up a bot, run it, and then we can basically see how it works. So let's target let's do the ETH USDT pair on Binance, and let's see how that works. So let's go to that pair first. Okay, so we'll do this one right here, which is right now it's trading at about 156 on Binance. A pretty steep fall for where it was a couple days ago, as you can see, but that is really the nature of the crypto market. So if we go to Hummingbot, let's configure a pure market making bot. So I'll do pure market making. Create Binance. Okay. And we'll just do a really simple bot here. I'll make it really tight because I know that this market, this ETH USDT market, is pretty tight, and I want to see some orders being filled, or at least on a dummy basis, when I'm running this bot. Let's see, quantity per order. Let's do one. Notorious queue. So yeah, this is actually the new feature that we added this time. This is basically a delay. So essentially what this means is that when your order gets filled, you can wait some time before placing the next order. And the goal of that is to kind of like essentially allow the bot to pause a little bit. A lot of times what happens to the market is there's a single trend that happens, in one direction or another, and sometimes you may want to wait before you place your next order, so that you're not kind of fighting that wave, and so you wait until that wave is ended before you place the next order. But here, well, let's go with 0 for now, and then we'll make that one false as well. This is another feature we added in the last release, which allows you to kind of really fine tune the behavior of a bot after an order is filled. But I may actually go into more detail about these features in the next one or two versions of Hummingbot Live. But today I really wanted to focus on paper trading mode. Great. So let's start that off. As you guys might see, we're having some problems with the CoinGecko API right now. So this does actually have an impact on the cross-exchange market making strategy, but it doesn't have an impact on the pure market making strategy right now. We are working with the CoinGecko guys to address this. Unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit of time, but we hope to get that resolved in the next 1 or 2 days. So you can see it's created a few orders, so we can do status to see what it's doing. So right now it's placing 2 orders, one at 157.88, another one at 157.64. And so obviously it's not going to show up on here, but you can see how you can see like this is kind of like where it would have placed these orders. So we can do another refresh. You can see now it's 157, 1526. So it's actually pretty wide. I'm actually not sure if we're going to actually have any orders filled, because it's still pretty wide given the top of the order book here, which is the spread is let's see, it's about 10 basis points on 157. So it's actually less than 0.1% wide spread. So we can run history. And this shows like orders placed. Oh wow! So we actually did have a bunch of orders filled, in paper trade mode on here. So it looks like, let's see, we've had 12 orders filled already, and this is kind of like the change of balance. You can see, so we started with a dummy balance of 3,000 USDT with 10 ETH. Now it's slightly changed a little bit. Looks like we're up 1 ETH so far. So we can do that again. Let's see if we've done a couple more trades. And so you can see we actually have a slight positive here. And so the way that I would use paper trading mode is really to test kind of like a certain strategy configuration. So for example, let's say it's I think it's a good way to just essentially to see how well a certain strategy would behave in a market over a period of time. As a caveat, overall I do think that paper trading mode will tend to overstate the return that you get from a certain strategy. So just bear that in mind. And the reason for that is that if you look at what actually happens when you place orders in an exchange, there's a bit of game theory here, because when you place orders for real, other market makers will respond to you. For example, you can see this effect in we have this kind of a thing called in our cross exchange market making strategy. We have some logic that says try to use a spread, but if someone is slightly ahead of you, you can go ahead and jump that person in order to make sure you're at the top of the order book. So a lot of other market making bots have this. This is called penny jumping logic. We're actually in the process of adding it across our into our pure market making strategy as well. And does that type of penny jumping logic is one example of adversarial behavior from other market makers in the market. So that won't be captured by paper trading mode, because you're not actually placing orders on the exchange. So because of that, the paper trading mode may actually overstate how much a return, how much a strategy can deliver, because it doesn't take into account like kind of competitive actions by other people in the market. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. But overall, I think that it does kind of give you a rough benchmark. I think it's more useful on a relative basis. So, for example, you may want to run two paper trading bots, one where you're setting really wide spreads, and trying to but not changing those spreads very often. So not like having a really long cancel order wait time, but wider spreads. And another strategy might be one where you're setting much tighter spreads and refreshing them much more often. So being able to kind of like do a relative comparison of these two strategies over time, I think will help users figure out the best parameters to use without actually using the real capital. So I think that's really the benefit of this mode. So overall, we believe that paper trading mode is a really valuable piece of Hummingbot, and we would hope that people will use this more and more often in order to figure out their best strategies. So that's really only the product part I want to cover today. The other thing I want to highlight is that we're working extensively with third-party developers now on adding extensions into Hummingbot. As you guys know, currently we support about 6 or 7 different exchanges, but because Hummingbot is an open source project, we want to encourage third-party developers to build both connectors to other exchanges as well as strategies. So right now we have a few in progress right now, and we're working on kind of like essentially a template for kind of like different instructions and assistance for third-party developers who are building connectors. The first place you should go to is a forum, which is pretty new. We just created this recently. It's a forum that talks about how to basically like it's for developers to engage and get more longer form content from us on how to do this. So, for example, we published a Gitcoin bounty recently in conjunction with Market Protocol for a custom strategy that would trade these leverage and short tokens. So so we have some questions on here from people, and some discussion about this particular Gitcoin bounty. We will have more Gitcoin bounties here very soon. So right now this forum is still still starting out. We're still it's still pretty new, but we hope that for developers who are interested in building strategies or connectors, this is where you can go in order to really get your questions answered in a longer form and a more thoughtful way than on Discord, which is really aimed at kind of a quick chat, in really short form content. So and so the forum, so similar to kind of our partners at 0x, which really make great use of their forum. We want to make this forum the place for Hummingbot developers to go in and get their questions answered, discuss how to implement certain features, and really hear from us in terms of where Hummingbot is going as a project. Overall, we're super excited about where Hummingbot's going. We're actually expanding the team right now. We're starting to add more engineers, and the reason is because we're finding that this problem of liquidity is important for almost everyone in crypto, and the ability for a project or exchange to leverage their community to allow them to add liquidity while at the same time profiting from market making or from incentives that provided by the exchange or the project is just really it just really makes sense compared to what people are doing now, where they're hiring these hedge funds, giving them tons of tokens and Bitcoin in order for them to market make, but also not really getting a lot of transparency out of what services these hedge funds are providing. So being able to give that power to their community and to have anyone who has their tokens contribute while at the same time earning a profit is pretty attractive. So look out for announcements from us in the next 1 or 2 months. We're going to be expanding that that functionality a lot, and we're in the process of talking to a bunch of partners, exchanges, exchange protocols, and also cryptocurrency projects who want to leverage their communities for market making. So I think with that, we're going to call it a day for this edition of Hummingbot Live. Hopefully, you learned something about paper trading mode and how it works. Let's check in on our paper trading bot again. So now we've done 80 trades in the last 20 minutes. So far, it actually looks like now our returns are turning negative now. So now we're down. So and overall, I would say this is not a surprising result, mainly because when I think about market making, it's about I really equated fishing, and so you ideally want to fish in places where there's lots of fish and you don't have other fishermen competing with you. This particular market, the ETH USDT market, I would say, given how high volume it is, there's definitely a lot of fish here. There's a lot of trades happening, lots of organic takers. However, the downside is you also have a lot of competition. And more importantly, you have a lot of competition from other market makers, which are much larger. So there are probably lots of large hedge funds who are also market making in here, and these guys have an advantage over most of us because they do so much volume that their fee levels are almost close to zero, and so because of that, if you're trying to compete with them with the same spreads, and if you're paying the same kind of like 0.1% fees on Binance that most individuals are paying, but these hedge funds are paying like almost close to zero, then you're at a significant disadvantage. And so the more trades you do, the more losses you would naturally incur due to that fee, the fee threshold. So this is just one example where I think the overall the advantage that us smaller market makers have is in the ability to hold and make markets on smaller tokens. Large hedge funds, they want to hold Bitcoin, Ether, and USDT, which are the most liquid assets, and they want to participate in the highest volume markets. However, the smaller tokens, especially the one we may already own, a lot of large hedge funds they find it hard to participate in the smaller markets because it's hard to, there isn't the volume that they need in order to generate a lot of trades. So that's why I think for us, for people like us, these exchanges, the smaller token trading pairs on Binance and Huobi are really the places where we can, really make profits without having to compete with the large hedge funds. But given how many markets there are in crypto, I think CoinMarketCap now there's like 20,000 individual markets, and those are only the ones listed in CoinMarketCap. There's many opportunities for people to play without having to compete with those funds. And as Hummingbot adds more and more exchanges and adds more complexity to our strategies, we really hope that people will make use of Hummingbot to find all the corners in the world where there are profits to be made from market making arbitrage, and go out and get them. With that, I want to thank you all for participating. And please post any more questions on YouTube or on our Discord, and we'll be back next week. Thank you.